What's up guys, Matt from footballboots.co.uk, and today's video will help you decide and understand a little bit more the best sole plate for you depending on the playing surface and also your style, whether it be SG, FG, AG, and also we'll talk about some conical and bladed stud info as well. So let's get straight into the video. So the three different types of sole plates are FG, which stands for firm ground, AG, which is artificial ground, and also SG, which is for soft ground. And the main purpose for each individual sole plate is to provide optimal traction on each playing surface. So on each sole plate you're going to find different types of stud configurations. Now something like on the FG Pure Control, you're going to find studs which are called conical studs, and they're circular in shape and they're great for rotational traction, so it's suited to players like midfielders, Paul Pogba, Ivan Rakitic, those kind of players that make lots of twists and turns. So next up we've got something called bladed studs, and bladed studs are a little bit different compared to the conical studs because they're much more triangular and V-shaped, and they're there for kind of wingers and forwards who like that rapid change of direction and acceleration. So to go alongside the conical and bladed stud configurations, you'll also find a crossbreed between the two. So something like the Magista Obra 2, it has some studs which are half conical, half bladed, and they're there to give you a crossbreed between the two. So best of both worlds, some rotational traction, plus some nice aggressive changes of direction as well. So breaking down the FG sole plate a little bit more, and it's actually the most common of all sole plates out there. It's also the most versatile. You see a lot of players wearing this, as you can wear it on both firm ground surfaces, AG surfaces, and if you're like me, I also do wear FG on some wet conditions as well. Now the good thing about the FG sole plate, which I particularly like, is that it's a lot more comfortable underfoot because there's less stud pressure compared to an SG sole plate. So we've already touched on the Pure Control featuring a more traditional conical stud configuration. Then there's the Magista Obra 2, which has a crossbreed, and then also we have the bladed studs, which are more like the Superfly 5, which are very aggressive. But what are the actual differences? Well, one of the best things about the Pure Control having the conical stud configuration is that if you do have bad knees, then you won't get as much aggressive traction when you're turning and changing direction, and they'll just be a little bit more comfortable and easy on the joints. So if you do have bad knees or are worried about injuries, then the conical stud configuration is the one for you. So with that being said, if you do have good joints and you want the most high level traction out there, then you want to definitely go for something like the Mercurial Superfly or Vapor, because they have a bladed stud configuration and they are incredibly aggressive. Now what the Superfly 5 have, which I have in my hands, are chevron shaped studs which are incredibly aggressive. Trust me, they are one of the most responsive on the entire market. Now those studs on the forefoot are all facing forward, so are great for acceleration. But the two on the heel alongside the other two, they're there for more braking, so they are brilliant for wingers and forwards. So we've already touched on the Pure Control and Magista Obra 2 being great for rotational traction, and alongside that the Superfly 5 being great for high level traction and changes of direction. Now alongside the different kind of shapes, there's also different sizes. Now the Puma Evo Touch Pro has conical studs again, but they are a little bit longer than what you'll find on the Pure Control. So if you want that traditional feel, but a little bit more traction, then the Puma Evo Touch is a great option to go for. So if you're looking to buy a new pair of boots, just bear in mind a couple of factors. If you play on both 3G and firm ground surfaces, something like the Pure Control is brilliant because it does have that conical sole plate, which is brilliant for that. If you play on just firm ground surfaces, that means that you can just get away with the Superfly 5 because it won't be too aggressive on the firm ground. It will be brilliant for high level traction, but not so good for 3G as it may be too aggressive. Now a nice thing that Adidas have is their Pure Chaos. Now alongside the Pure Chaos being a great boot all round, the sole plate is also a little bit of a crossbreed like the Magista Obra 2 with the Pure Control and Superfly 5. Because it has the conical studs of the Pure Control as the base, but then some more bladed finishes like the Superfly 5. They actually call them the teardrop shaped studs, so if you do play on 3G and also firm ground surfaces, the Pure Cat is actually perfect for that. So as an overall verdict of the FG sole plate, there's no doubt that that specific sole plate is the best for firm ground surfaces. Now if I were to have my own personal pick on which FG sole plate is for me, if I was playing on both 3G and firm ground surfaces, it would have to be something like the Pure Control, but if it was just firm ground, then I'll go for the Superfly 5, as myself I do like high level traction. Okay, so we just wrapped up the FG sole plates and also touched on how the Pure Chaos is an FG AG combination, but let's look at specifically AG sole plates. So the specific AG boots that we have on show are the Nike Hover and Phantom 2, the Adidas A16 Plus Primeknit, and also their Puma Evospeed 1.4. Now the first thing that I've noticed when picking up these boots is that they're much heavier compared to those specific FG boots. So let's talk about the further differences now. So flipping the Phantom 2 over, and what you'll notice first of all is that there's a lot more studs compared to just the Hyper and Finish, the FG variation. Now alongside that, there's also holes in these conical studs on the AG variation, which the FG doesn't have. So Nike have made the holes in their AG studs just to allow for the 3G rubber crumb to enter inside, which gives you slightly more traction than what you had if you just wore the FG variation on a 3G surface. So one of the things about AG Soleplates is that their stud configurations are almost always conical. As we can see on the Ace Prime Knit, again has conical studs, and there's actually a lot of them on there. They're called Total Control on the A16 Plus Prime Knit, and it's there to give you specific traction on 3G pitches. So putting these two boots aside and bringing in the Puma Evospeed. Now to add a little bit more durability, for anyone who has played on 3G surfaces, you'll know that sole separation does happen. Now what Puma have done, they've added some rivets at the toe, also on the fourth and also on the heel, and that is just there to make sure that the sole itself doesn't come away from the uppers. That is a very good thing about AG Soleplates. They are made to be a little bit more durable. So we've already touched on how the AG boots are a little bit more heavy, and overall the Soleplate does feel a little bit more heavy duty. Now if you were to wear something like the Superfly 5 on a 3G pitch, and I previously wore a Vapor 9 with the bladed studs on 3G at university, and what happened was the bladed stud actually snapped off. So if you are playing on 3G surfaces, it's probably best to stay away from bladed studs and go for something like an AG variation, because they are just a little bit more durable. So although the AG boots are designed to give you specific traction on 3D surfaces and also a little bit more durable, the Phantom 2 has an added texture around the toe box. They do feel slightly heavier, as I've already said, bulky and clumsy. So for me personally, I'd still go for an FG boot on AG, something like the Pure Control, but I'd definitely stay away from something like the Superfly 5. So the best thing about AG Soleplates is their injury prevention. Now as an overall verdict, what I'd personally go for, I probably wouldn't go for an actual AG because they're slightly heavier and bulkier, but I'd definitely stay away from something like the Superfly 5 with its bladed studs, and either go for the conical studs of a Pure Control or the teardrop of a Pure Chaos. So we've already looked at FG and AG, so let's bring in some SG Soleplates. Now the first thing that you'll notice about SG is that they actually start to introduce some metal materials. So SG Soleplates have been around for a long time. I've got a pair of Adidas Predators from the 90s, and the first thing that I can notice, this boot in my right hand, just the one boot, is a lot heavier compared to the two in my left hand. So in terms of modern innovation, modern boots are a lot more innovative compared to those original SGs. So putting aside just the 6 stud configuration from the Adidas Predator, what we can see on the more modern examples is they have a combination of both SG and moulded studs and bladed studs as well, which are called SG Pros. So what you'll find a lot of players wearing in the Premier League are actually these SG Soleplates, which have some moulded and bladed studs in there as well. They are a great option, and especially in the Premier League, because they do water the pitches so heavily before kickoff, so the ball really zips through, and goalkeepers and defenders especially want that little bit more extra security and traction, so they'll actually opt for the SGs instead of FGs. So SG Soleplates are obviously designed for soft grounds, especially wet and muddy conditions. Guys over in England, which is coming up to winter, if you're interested in buying some new boots for the season, then definitely go for an SG pair at the moment, because pitches will become very, very muddy. And if you do have some FG boots at the moment, go and look for some SGs, because they'll give you some higher level traction. Now that's because the studs themselves, the metal ones, are very much longer compared to FG. So it's going to give you some more penetration when twisting and turning, and that is obviously the best thing about SG. Now when buying Nike SG Pro boots, what they also give you inside the package is another tube of SG studs. Now there's actually different sizes, and you put the longer ones in the heel and the shorter ones at the toe box. So apart from Nike, what do other brands do? Now Adidas, they obviously have their boots like the Pure Chaos, the Pure Control, and also Pure Agility. And what you'll find on their SG Soleplates is they have those conical studs, the teardrops on the Pure Chaos, but also the SG around the boot, the heel, the midfoot, and the forefoot. Now the best thing about the Adidas SG studs, and not a lot of people know, is that the SGs actually can be interchanged with some FG studs as well. So these come with the SG boots from Adidas when you buy them. They come with some FGs, so you can actually wear them for SG, so soft ground, but when the pitches become drier, then you can change them out for the FG, which is a great invention. So if you can afford the price tag, the creme de la creme of SG boots are of course Nike's anti-clog. Now the anti-clog, it has that SG Pro Soleplate, so there's conical, bladed and also SG studs. But alongside that, the Soleplate has a special treatment that actually repels mud from it when hit with water. So it is a brilliant option, but of course they are very expensive. So the reason SG boots have metal studs is that they're slightly longer than what you'll find on FG, and they need to be a metal or alloy material to be stronger so they don't snap. Now alongside that, the metal itself actually penetrates into the wet mud better, so it will give you high level traction compared to an FG boot. So as an overall verdict, the best boot for wet pitches would be the Anti-Clog by Nike, a brilliant sole plate alongside that stud configuration. But if you can't afford the very high price tag, then what Adidas have done and offered you that interchangeable stud so you can wear them for both SG and also FG is also a great invention and definitely should be looked at. So guys, that wraps up our Soleplate video to help you decide which boots to go for, also which boots to choose for your next playing surface. Let us know what your favourite Soleplate or stud configuration is in the comment section below. Thanks for watching, cheers.